Hey neighbors, the Handyman here with Initiative Coffee Company, the Bill Allan here with Bill Allan World. If you're on the West Coast, it's 7 a.m. It's time to rise and roll.
Rise and roll, yeah! All right, people. How's it going?
Hello, MiniTerrainDomain. I'm excited to work with you.
Good morning.
In 2 days. Is anybody else in chat? 3,111. No.
Yes.
No one is.
For all 236,000 of you joining us this morning, thank you. I'm Bill. This is Brian. And today we're going to be talking about a lot of table topics.
Table topics.
By the way,
it's a
patent pending. Table topics.
Patent pending? Copyright?
Not you,
pending?
Geek and Sundry. Me.
Patent pending.
Copyright.
Copyright.
We have it already. Copyright.
There's the C in the circle.
Table topics this morning are going to include some Kickstarter stuff, Brian.
Okay.
We're going to talk about some drama because, you know, you can't have a morning talk show without drama. So we'll recap some drama. But we're also going to talk about some gaming tips that we've had recurring questions about.
Sure.
How to address certain things at the table. So we're going to kind of do almost like a speed round with those questions. Just how do you address it? You're a DM. You're running a table. This comes up. How do you address it?
That'll be fun.
And I think it's something that'll be interesting.
That's an exciting thing I wish I knew about before I got here this morning.
Well, but it's the kind of thing where if you're a newbie DM, these things could be very daunting.
Sure.
But even experienced DMs sometimes
struggle with some stuff.
Sometimes they struggle. Sometimes they're jaded, and they're just so and they just put the wall up, And so it's more about like, hey, how do you find a compromise? Because we're at a table playing a game. Let's keep it that way. So Brian.
Yes.
Let's start off actually with the positive news. What do you have going on with Initiative Coffee Company, and talk a little bit about the coming events?
So that is real positive news. We're gonna drop our second donation over to Anxiety Gaming based off of our Snickety Sticks roast with Holly Conrad. Sometime this week, we'll do an October donation. And that'll include the money we raised from Galaxy Con through the raffle and through the re-roll tickets we did for the Epic there. And then what else do we have going on? We're in this. I am doing a one shot with MiniTerrainDomain on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central, so 9 p.m. Eastern, where it was called One Flew Over a Cockatrice's Nest. And it's a
what is
Affairs
that?
of Dragons.
Talk a little bit more about it. What's the setup?
So it's I guess I don't know a ton about it actually, but I know that we're all playing Dragon Wormlings, and we're trying to escape from 1,000 orcs. But beyond that, I'm excited to learn as I go. I'll be playing Brass Dragon. MiniTerrainDomain says it's going to be epic, and I believe him. You don't always get to play dragons, and I'm pretty pumped for it. So.
All right, so Brian, here's another question.
Yeah.
What do you have going on with for those who are in the Chicago area? Mm-hmm. What are some of the regular gaming events that Initiative Coffee has going on with regard to the Monday night and Saturday night gatherings, and what locations and all that kind of stuff?
We run every Monday, pretty much every Monday, and typically it's at the LaGrange Public Library from 5 to 9. And that is generally Adventures League stuff. This week we're not at the library, and next week we won't be doing it because of the holiday. The LaGrange Public Library is going through some construction, and so we kind of get bumped around a little bit while that's going on.
Now, interesting side note, and this is a surprise. Brian didn't know that I was going to say this. So I went to the library to pick up the Patrick Rothfuss's second book in the Kingkiller series. I'm a slow reader, so it takes me a long time to get through big books, but I love it so far, as I did the first one. I'm about 6 years late to the party, but whatever. Right. So while I'm there, I see Trudy, librarian Trudy, and she's like...
Who doubles as a Lyons Township High School librarian? Yeah.
And she's like...
Hello,
she's like,
Hungry
hey,
X.
Where's Brian? And we love having the games here. That's awesome. Amazing. She's like, the kids just come, they're like so happy to be here, and she's like, so just a little positive note, Brian.
Well, that's exciting
That
to hear.
actually happened,
Yeah.
and I was like, yeah, that's great. Let's keep it going. So here's a question.
That's the cool thing about the LaGrange Library is they're very positive and very excited about having programming there.
Yes.
I think especially programming that targets kind of that middle school to high school age group.
Right. And that kind of segues into the question of how do I find a gaming group that we revisit pretty regularly. But, we've said before, if you're looking for a game group, reach out to your local game store, comic book store. But in the absence of that, your local library could be a great place. And even
They've
if they
got meeting
don't...
rooms, and it doesn't take a lot to organize a game.
Right. Even if there aren't any games running,
Right. You could start one pretty easily.
be the founder. Make it happen.
I mean, it's tough to get enough people at the table sometimes, but all in all, I think like to get 4 people to show up, I think everybody knows 4 people.
Yes.
That they can badger into doing something.
And there might be, remember this, people, if you're like new to the game and you're having a struggle trying to get a group together, there may be people just like
Right.
you.
Absolutely.
And if you're the person, if you're the hero who puts the flyer up at the library and asks, hey, can we have a table or this side conference room, once a week or whatever, however often you're going to make it happen, and you put the flyer up and just, put it out there.
And a lot
if you
of
don't put
libraries
yourself
are desperate
out there,
for content.
nobody knows.
A lot of libraries are desperate for programming.
Right.
I know, like, LaGrange was excited about it. I know that.
And it doesn't
true.
cost your library anything.
Right.
And
Usually you have to have a library card to rent the room.
Right.
But, like, get a library card. You should have one anyway. It's a library card.
Yeah. So there's a lot of benefits with that. And by the way, people, another interesting side note, Brian, the libraries often have money to buy books.
Yep.
That's part of what they do.
Yep.
Our library has
They have a budget
they have
specifically for D&D
a
books.
bunch of D&D books. I was shocked. I was like wandering around
I actually
and
consulted with them 3 or 4 weeks ago.
yeah, and not
about
just
what
like a
books to
player's
get.
handbook. They have like the whole rack, man. They had like Sword Coast and they had, Xanathars. So, you might be in a position where you're just getting into D&D and you're like, I don't know if I want to spend, $100
And
bucks
that's
on
the
books.
thing, right?
Then maybe you hit up your library, you tell them that you want to start this up. If you grow the community, the library will support it. They will buy the books. And then you guys have like a real community gaming group.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right.
So we do that, and then on the first and third Saturday, we're at Hillgrove Tap in Western Springs doing some adult-only homebrew.
Yeah, and that group's growing too. But there's
Yeah.
plenty of room. You have plenty of DMs. So
If it grows too
expands,
much, we'll just add a second table. We've already got that kind of worked out in terms of the plan. But
Yeah, Hungry in the chat was just saying another way to get a group is that you will DM. That's how he has his
yeah,
current group.
that's killer. Like that's the thing that plagues a lot of like. A few years ago, there were like area and regional coordinators for Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing. And if you've got game days, the toughest thing to find is DMs. That's why GMs get free badges at cons. That's why, you just got to run 3 tables and you get in for free. And sometimes you get a free room. It's because nobody wants to run, but everybody wants to play. And at some point, you just got to bite the bullet and do it. I think if you're in a regular gaming group, probably you should all take turns.
That
At
segues
least
nicely
once.
into
And then
one
if
of our.
somebody sucks, they don't take another turn. But I think like everybody knows if the table doesn't go well. You know
Okay.
what I mean?
So table topics, speed round. We're going to
Sure.
cover a bunch of stuff because we have other things to get through. But Brian,
Yes.
common question: what if you were in a group, you volunteered to DM, everybody in the group agreed to take turns, but the other people who are DMing suck? What do you do?
You teach them to be better DMs.
How?
A lot of that is just sitting at a table. I mean, that's half of what we do. That's the reason we run our weekly programming, is to train people to be good DMs. And it doesn't take a lot of work. It just takes like somebody to be like, no, it's not hard, do it. And then to sit at the table and like help troubleshoot if troubleshooting is needed. Or to kind of gently nudge things along if that is needed. Like I think the biggest issue that when people say that they have crap DMs, I think what they mean is that they have DMs that don't guide the story enough. And it seems counterintuitive because like rails and railroading is considered this terrible taboo thing. But sometimes a little bit of a railroad is what's gonna get you to the next step, So sometimes it's time for the DM just to like get all of the information in and say, all right, like, what are we doing? Like, here's a timer, right? Here's whatever. And I think like if you watch season 3 of The Bard's Tale, we might incorporate a little bit more of like not necessarily railroading, but like rules to streamline gameplay, specifically combat. I might start using a timer just to get people to like think on their toes and keep moving. But aside from that, I think just like you can train people to be good DMs, and if they don't want to hear it, you can either keep being a DM, or the benefit of an optional hobby is that you don't have to do it. So if you feel like you're being burdened, maybe it's time to switch to some board games for a while. Maybe you need a break.
And that's
Maybe,
a good point.
you know,
What if? All right. So next,
I wouldn't dissolve the group, because then
Right.
you've got no group, right?
next question. Let's say you're burned out, and burnout is a thing. People you play
Absolutely.
the same game over and over. It happens. All right.
Especially
so
if you're running every time.
Right.
You know, it's a lot of work to put into.
let's say
running
the
people.
entire here's the situation, Brian. The entire group is burned out. They've been playing D&D 5e since it came out.
Sure.
They want to play something different, but nobody really has the the go out and do it to pick a new game. What do? How do you get past that hurdle of burnout and find something new that everyone will enjoy in your group?
I think people are they struggle to pick a new game because they look at rule books that are 200 pages long, and I think the solution to that is to find the one-page tabletop games, right? You know, Honey Heist is on that list. A lot of the Powered by the Apocalypse games have a lot of like large rule books, but a lot of those rules are like supplemental, and they give you like the one page, this is what you need to know to play the game. So just find a game that you can do quickly. I know that there's a competition every year. We heard about it at Gen Con. That's a role-playing game in 500 words
Yeah.
or something. I don't know all the rules behind it, and I don't know like what the name of the competition is, right? But I think the big solution to not wanting to learn a new system is to find a system that doesn't have a lot of learning. If it's under a page, you can read it and just kind of read it together. The other solution is like you don't necessarily if it's about getting together and meeting and having a little bit of community and fellowship, which I think, in my opinion, most tabletop is meant to be. I don't know that it has to be a tabletop role-playing game. Take a board game with you. I think everybody's got a copy of something somewhere.
Right.
And then maybe you just need a week to kind of like refresh and get your batteries recharged. And maybe, you need more than a week, but people love that game, so they're going to play it again the next week and give you a little more time. Or that gives people time to like be inspired to run games. Yeah.
Do you think genre matters if you're in burnout?
Real quick, there's a lot of quick games. Absolute Tabletops, Mecha Hack, ICRPG from Runehammer, Honey Heist, and others from Grant Howitt. Or, like you said, play a board game. Cool. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Index Card RPG is the ICRPG to which you were referring, and it's kind of an interesting concept. The man formerly known as Hankering for an Ale, Runehammer, how to play D&D like a badass, basically came up with this thing just as quick inspirational sketches that would lead to story arcs and plot lines and NPCs. And it's a really simple visual system that allows you to kind of play in a setting, and it's just expanded and grown, and the community has embraced it, and it's awesome.
There's another one too. The Capstone stream was talking about it on Sunday morning at Gen Con, and it was like 200 word RPG or something. And it's it's a yearly competition they do that has like a prize, and they are itching for people to play those games because they get 1,000 submissions, and there's no way that they're gonna play all 1,000 of those games.
Right,
They look at
right.
the rule set and see if they think it'll make sense. So.
Yeah, and sometimes that's all it is something that started off as a homegrown game or game system or genre alternative then becomes its own thing in its own right. And it's it's not like Runehammer suddenly stopped playing D&D,
Right.
but it's just as an alternative.
And I think like every once in a while, I think it's healthy to kind of practice your role-playing chops, because I think role-playing gets overlooked in tabletop RPGs.
yes,
It gets overlooked for mechanics and combat and everything else. So a game like Fiasco,
yeah,
that's almost entirely role-playing, I think is a great kind of alternative. It's one book. It's $26 at your local gaming store. And it's just you're acting out scenes that go wrong. So,
all right. Next table topic related, and it was a nice segue that we didn't plan because we're in the zone. That's why, people.
we're in the zone. All I have to
question-
do is get sick to be in the zone.
Yeah,
Cool.
it comes down to role playing, but this is from Skiromir. I'm sorry, I apologize in advance for ruining your name. Skiromir Jarkanic.
In Bill's defense, this is clearly a Northern European name.
Yes. In D&D, I've noticed that in some way each player has to play their character's conversation with the other one in order to obtain important information. However, so in other words, interacting in character and role-playing and sharing information that the characters have learned, right?
To whatever degree your group does.
Yes. However, the game's progress might proceed a bit too harshly, I think he means slowly, for a player to keep this in mind and not derail the storyline. Is there any way a DM may allow the others to contemplate this fact other than just asking, would you like to do something else? So it comes down to...
Downtime.
Yeah. So explain
Sure.
downtime and how
So-
it works.
Downtime is a thing that 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons hijacked from the World of Darkness campaigns.
Yes.
Which is the best thing, I don't know, maybe not the best, but one of the better things that they did with 5th edition.
Yes.
So the notion is like your characters do things between adventures, and those adventures happen at exciting times, and then they have downtime where they do other things. And in the player's handbook, there's a list of downtime activities that you can participate in. It's explored upon further in Xanathar's Guide. But I know that like for Bard's Tale, some people who have been watching might not know why people know things that they know because they saw every episode but don't know when certain interactions happened. And that's because we utilize a Discord server for downtime. And that the idea is not everything happens on camera because these characters are living, breathing entities that have their own kind of ideas and plans and everything else. So I would say if it's not crucial to right now in the campaign, you can throw in a downtime mechanic, and that works great. Other things you can do in downtime is like craft items and utilize your profession and make money. I mean, you've got a player's handbook you can look. They're expanded in Xanathar's Guide, and I think they are a huge addition to 5th edition.
So if downtime is character interaction,
amongst other things.
without being meta, it's character interaction without literally taking the time to role play and say every word. It's summarizing,
Yeah, and
paraphrasing.
I think that's a good DM hand wave. if your players don't want to, if they're not comfortable with that level of role play,
Yeah.
which I think is like we talked about it maybe last week or the week before. Like that's a pretty intimate thing, right? And it takes a lot of trust to be able to sit down and like take on a new role and kind of like put all of it out there.
Right. And I guess I'm wondering how, if Skiromir was thinking, for in-game stuff,
Sure.
how do you facilitate that? And one thing I thought, for example, as a DM is the traditional, you're camped. So
Right.
the party's traveling from one place to another. They make camp. Every party has to have a short rest or a long rest. And that's usually when I try to facilitate the in-character role-playing and sharing of information.
Or like on long hikes.
Right.
Whatever. I think the only time that you can't just kind of hand wave that and be like, do you tell them, is like in the middle of combat, right? Because I don't,
Yes.
like,
I think
and there are people who disagree with me on that. I think there are DMs who are like, no, he knows, he told us it's fine. He's telling us it's fine.
right.
But from my perspective, like, I think that disrupts the narrative a little bit more than I would like as someone running the table.
And it's for new DMs, it's something that you're going to tackle regularly. So imagine you're in an encounter. Your PCs are they're actually in combat. There are opponents, and one player at the table says, oh, use your Eldritch Blast or do this or do that. When they're coaching each other, it's a juggling thing because when I was younger, we were like, okay, that's fine, whatever. You could tell each other what to do. You could give each other ideas. It's like a collective brainstorming. But as we got older and our playing style matured, we realized that, actually that's not really realistic unless you took...
It's not only not realistic, it's also...
It's meta.
It's not. I'm not even worried about, the rules and the narrative. At some point, you're going to alienate the other players.
Right.
Because those players are making choices based off what they want to do for their character.
Bad or good.
Yeah, for better or for worse. And if you're going to kind of, armchair quarterback them...
Well, not the DM. I'm saying
no.
I
mean other players.
Right.
If you're gonna and it's one thing if you're like, hey, don't forget you have this thing you can do, which might be helpful right now. But if you're one of these people that are like, no, use this right now, use this.
What if it's
you're not playing the whole team? You're playing your character, and let other people play their character.
Now the exception I'll make to that is if they actually take that opportunity within their round. If they say, okay, I'm going to disengage, I move back, and then I yell, need healing, or, kill the big one first, or something.
Right. Or hey, don't you have a thing you can do? Sure.
That kind of stuff I feel like is...
that's character to character, not player to player. But I think, anytime you minimize another player's agency at a table, you're taking something from them.
Well, and it's funny because I feel like I have more than sufficient evidence for this because there are so many negative comments on the first episode of season 1 of D&D with high school students about Cooper, and it's basically like Cooper's telling everybody what to do. Yep. Now, I didn't affect it either way. I let it go because what happened at that table was, there's so much context that you need to know, but essentially what happened was a bunch of people who'd never played D&D before sat down to play. Cooper's a dominant personality kid who took a leadership role right away without anybody telling him that he was the leader. He just became that person, and he totally told everybody what to do. Yeah. But from a tactical perspective, I had mad respect because I was like, all right, this is a group of kids who don't know what they're doing, and one of them stepped up without me telling them.
The problem is,
so it's a juggling act.
Is it a tactical game anymore? Is what it comes down to.
That game became
and that's
tactical
table
at
to table.
certain points.
But that's table to table, right?
Yeah.
The Bard's Tale, I don't consider it a tactical game.
No, sweet mother of God, there's no tactics at all. That's why they almost die every combat.
And so, I would be annoyed. I get annoyed when there's a lot of, aggressive coaching. Right, and it's not because I care about the monsters; it's because I care about the other people at the table.
Yes,
and if you're alienating people and taking away their agency, they're gonna not enjoy their time, and they're gonna have a negative impact, a negative experience with the game.
Right.
And if our goal is to bring more people to the hobby instead of pushing people away from the hobby, it's just counterintuitive.
Well, and in season 2, there was a point during a combat, and I don't remember the specifics, but there was a point during a combat where the bards were fuddling around in combat as they typically do, and I was in the game as Ray, and I tried to get them to be more tactical, and they weren't being tactical. And at one point, Tyler was going to do something with Nadir that I felt was not tactically helpful, and I basically threatened to kill him, which was not in character. I totally stepped out of, I became meta. And I realized afterwards, I was like, I might have been a little hard on Tyler. But I think he knew that,
But I think a lot of those, a lot of that can be helped with tools, right? I think, timing rounds is a good way to, minimize that. If you don't do a thing, you don't do a thing. You have 2 minutes to figure out what you're going to do this round. And in a game that's not televised or produced or on camera, I don't know that it matters. Take however long you need to take for your round. But ultimately, I think by the time people get to 5th or 6th level, they should have at least a baseline understanding of what their characters are and do.
That's
and
right.
Should be able to kind of... Otherwise, they're not taking the game seriously.
Yeah.
And if they're not taking the game seriously, that's fine. But, if everybody else at the table is taking the game seriously, it's not fair to the other players either. So.
Yes. And it's
I'm not saying that that's what Tyler was doing. I'm just saying that,
he was serious. I was being a dick. And that's part of who I am. Speaking of games, whether they're televised or not, Brian, it's time to cut to some drama. But don't worry, we'll bring it around to a happy note. So here's the thing, people. some of you might play tabletop, where you're around a table with people. Some of you might only be able to play online, like maybe you're using Fantasy Grounds or Roll20. Let's say, for example, that you're using Roll20 and it works for you. Good, keep doing that. But, Brian, last week in the world of D&D and tabletop gaming YouTube content creators, there was an explosion of drama. And it was a whole backstory about how a group of content creators felt disenfranchised
I
by...
disagree.
Well, this is the presentation
Sure.
for two of the videos. Okay, so Dawnforgedcast and Taking 20 both released videos about why they don't use Roll20 and also what happened to explain why they don't. Now, chronologically, Dawnforgedcast put out, Andrew Armstrong put out his video first, and it's called Why I Quit Roll20. It, as of this morning, had 125,000 views. And it basically, he explains that he and a group of others, including Taking 20 and Nerdarchy and WebDM, when they were doing Save or Dice, which is one of their shows, they had a proposition to work with Roll20, and they proposed, they're like, look, we want you to be a sponsor for the show, and basically, we're going to feature Roll20 as the vehicle by which we're playing this game with, all of our subscribers watching, etc. And their presentation is that Roll20 basically said, no, we don't need any more groups of like white guys, which they took offense to. And this is months ago. If you want all if you want all the details, you can go watch that. The next day, Cody from Taking 20 put out his own video saying the simple truth: what happened with Nolan and Roll20. That has 131,000 views, so it actually has more views than Andrew's video, which came out a day before, and it elaborates from Cody's perspective on what happened. Now, both videos share the same basic information that I paraphrased, which was that this group of content creators had an online meeting with Roll20, and in that online meeting, this Nolan guy who was from Roll20 was basically like, no, he rejected their proposal to have Roll20 sponsor their show, and on the grounds that, like, basically we don't need another show of like white guys playing D&D. So that was the drama. Now, I didn't know this because I didn't see a video follow-up, but Jim Davis from WebDM
He tweeted from vacation.
So tell us a little bit about that.
I want to go back a step and say that these videos are timed in an interesting way. Roll20 took some heat this week because they banned a user that had a name that was similar to Jeremy Hedder's from the Quartering. Not Jeremy Hedder. I don't even know the guy's name. Jeremy whatever from the Quartering. He's the guy who got punched in the face at Gen Con.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
And also who I had in mind when I referred to YouTube bozos last week.
Yeah.
So they banned someone who had a similar username. The user said, like, I'm not that guy. I'm a different person. Why did you ban me? And Roll20 said, we were wrong, but we're still not going to reinstate you. And so there was a lot of kind of a firestorm about that. And I think this very seemingly unrelated situation with these content creators is timed to kind of take advantage of that.
Okay, so you were inferring that perhaps in the midst, so the timing has some relevance, you're saying. Right. In other words,
because they did wait a year. They waited a year to talk about this, and both of the videos talk about how they didn't want to make these videos, and they didn't want to have to do the videos. And I guess my response to that is then don't. It looks like 1080p. There's a lot of lag, Dave. Dave knows. So I don't.
Let me read Jim's Jim's tweet. I just found it. So, all right, here's my side of the Roll20 Saver Dice meeting. We were told that Roll20 didn't want to sponsor a show with 5 white guys. That is true. However, we were not discriminated against, victims of racism or sexism, or denied something we were entitled to.
Right.
Roll20 can work with whichever creators they want to work with, and them passing on Saver Dice did not harm me materially in any way. To say that we were discriminated against is to misrepresent the meeting, and we are not entitled to anything. If you're interested in further thoughts on the matter, Pruitt and I discussed them on our Patreon podcast. It's not discrimination because we weren't denied something due to our race or gender that we would otherwise be entitled to or have a right to. Brands get to choose who they sponsor or who reps them.
Yeah.
So then there's a whole discussion.
There's a feed. So here's the issue, and I don't. It's tough because I don't necessarily blame Cody because.
This is rough.
Racism and sexism are concepts that are often misunderstood.
Yeah.
Right? Like racism and sexism. I'm sorry, Shadzar. I'm sorry we don't have what's going on. He's got some lag issues. I'm not sure what the issue is. We'll talk to our provider and see what the problem is. But racism and sexism are not individual actions, they're societal phenomenon. So as a person you don't have the ability to do a racism, right? And the constructs are about power dynamics, and this comes from social theory, which I like to think I know a little bit about because I have a degree in.
Yes.
But the notion of racism is about a power majority, is about the systemic problems that power minorities have because power minorities put power in place, or power majorities put power in place. So, realistically, to say that you're a white guy and racism happened to you, it's not. You can be discriminated against for being white, but it's not a racism issue. You can't be nobody. There's not acts of sexism against men. There's just discrimination based off gender. And if we're gonna go ahead and say that discrimination is always bad, Cody doesn't get to cast. You know what I mean? He doesn't get to make choices in his cast.
Right.
He just has to get the first 5 people.
Well, and you know what? When I watched Andrew's and I watched Cody's, I will say that both of them in their videos made disclaimers. This is a business thing.
Right.
It's not a criticism. Roll20 as a platform is fine. It's great. We used it. We still use it, etc. But why we're not using it going forward is more because of the business thing. Right. I didn't get the impression from Andrew from his video, because that's the first one that came out, that they were calling for a revolt. I didn't get that impression.
Cody didn't call for a revolt, but he did actively say that he was discriminated. The actions were racist and sexist.
No, but I'm saying
he was a white dude that was denied a show.
Yes, but I'm saying that I'm talking about a call to action.
Sure.
Neither one of them were saying hey, subscribers, go quit Roll20. Now, I'm sure some of them did. In fact, I saw some tweets where people were I'm done with you, Roll20. Right. But that's. They didn't make an active call to action to their subscribers or fans or followers to say, don't use Roll20 because they screwed us.
I don't necessarily disagree with that, but when you're using loaded terms,
right,
there's an inherent call to
there's
action.
A lot of inference. There's a lot of reading between the lines.
So, I don't know. I don't necessarily blame Cody for getting it wrong.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a concept that's misunderstood a lot. I don't know Nolan. From other accounts, he's not a good guy to work with, but from other accounts, he is. So, just like any other personal relationship, I think he rubs people the wrong way. Maybe he was too comfortable in that meeting. Maybe it was a poor business decision on his end to tell them why. But
to me, it seems like somebody just being really comfortable enough,
just being with
the
our
people.
Platform. Companies get to have mission statements.
Yeah.
And ours is about growing communities, and theirs is about growing communities through inclusion and diversity.
Yeah.
And if they don't have to spend money places that don't support their mission, that's not an obligation they have.
Yeah. And so, my impression from the from these two different perspectives.
Pandemonic. I agree that it's discrimination. I just don't know that all discrimination is bad. Like, I don't know that to say that discrimination is bad means that, like, when you do a broadcast, you have to pick the first 5 people that show up.
Right. Well,
Like,
Pandemonic makes a good point. I think in retrospect, like, this Nolan guy might have chosen his words a little more
Sure.
carefully instead of like, yeah, we don't need another show with 5 white guys. Just saying like, yeah, you know what? We're kind of good with this layer
Right.
of content and we're looking for something different, but thanks anyway.
Sure.
Like, absolutely from a business person perspective, his choice of words was
Right.
probably not the most diplomatic or
Sure.
strategic.
which is why
totally
I'm not
agree.
here to, like, defend Nolan. I don't know.
Yeah, I
anything
don't know
about
him
the
either.
guy as a person, but, like, the platform Roll20
Yeah,
gets to choose what they want to put on the air.
sure.
And by all accounts, like, the programming they're putting on the air with Adam Coble is doing great,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and there are a lot of other, actual play streamers who are using Roll20, and I don't use Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds. I have no stake in the game, but I feel like people, obviously with anything, people think critically about this. Choose what you're going to choose. Don't just be like a lemming and follow people off the cliff just because a couple influencers.
Right.
Had a bad experience from a business perspective. It doesn't mean that the platform's bad. And I'm neither defending Nolan nor anyone in this. I'm just saying, like, I don't know Nolan,
Sure.
but I know Andrew,
Right.
like,
I've
and I
met
know
Andrew
Cody,
and I met Cody.
and Dave from Nerdarchy. Like,
Right.
they're they're not
I don't
bad
want to,
guys.
and I don't want to drag Dave into this
Right.
because he has not made a public statement one
Right.
way or the other.
But he was.
I know he's getting a lot of Twitter heat right now.
Right.
That's really unfair because he's not involved in this whole drama. He's trying really hard to stay out of it.
Yeah.
People are kind of pulling him in.
But the point is that, like, whatever happened.
Right.
That was with that group of people who are pitching a show concept. And as we've discussed, like, Roll20 is a company. They're
Right.
not required to work with anyone.
Right.
So that's
You don't see ABC greenlighting every pilot that comes across the
Right.
desk either.
exactly. So all right, let's
move on.
pick
I
it
don't
up
wanna
to
deal with this
Kickstarter.
anymore.
Kickstarter. So our friend Danny Herrero at 3D Printed Tabletop,
Sure.
who also started up a guild, a community for 3D printers who are focused on tabletop gaming stuff, has launched a Kickstarter. It's called The Lost Dragons 3D Printable Fantasy Dragons. If you search Danny Herrero, Herrero, I'll also copy this link into the chat for you guys that are watching on Twitch.
I'm going to go on a limb here. You ready? If you have a 3D printer, you should subscribe to this Kickstarter. I haven't even seen it yet, but
It's pretty amazing.
he does good work. One, he's really trying to kickstart that community. No pun intended. Two, and he's a good guy.
So listen to this. Now, a $4,000 goal was set. They've brought in
10 times
49,000, and they have 16 days to go. 848 backers. Okay, so I'm looking at the goals, Brian, and really, when you think about STL files,
Sure.
literally, if you pledge, you're getting the
$20.
STL files. You could go print this wherever you want, or hire
Right.
somebody to print it. Right? The all-in pledge of $60
$60 for the
gets you
all-in pledge.
all of the Lost Dragon STLs, all
Sure.
the unlocked core and in-stretch, Forest Dragon, Burned Cottage, Frozen Cottage, Lost Dragons lore PDF. So those are Kickstarter exclusives. They won't be available later. You get all of that for $70. You can have your name mentioned.
Sure.
For $100, you are a Master of Dragonkin pledge, which means you get all of those things. A
And then
video
he'll do a
that they
video
produce
about
on
that you. Well, not about you, but you get to choose the topic. It looks like.
Right. And then for $200, you get everything plus exclusive commercial printing rights for 12 months for Kickstarter models. Meaning, if you're in the business of printing and selling your prints and you have your own store, you get 12 months for all these models to commercially, not just personally, but
And that looks
you
like
can
it's
make it
and
and
it's
sell it.
exclusive, so it's only people that like kickstart at the $200 level that have the rights to retail this.
Right.
Which
So
is pretty
that's
big. I mean, that's if you own a store or
Well, because
like,
how
own a
much are you
printing
selling
company,
that for?
You can
20
sell them for $60,
20,
like depending
40,
on the size.
60?
Like
Yeah, so
Yeah.
there are. I mean,
It's legit.
go check this out. I just pasted
the models
the link.
look dope. Like
Yeah, and you know, just on a personal level, like I've gotten to know Danny and you know through the online communities and the crafting communities, and this is just like one of the nicest guys that I've never met face to face. But
Sure.
we've you know interacted online, and he's always just a really genuinely positive person.
Sure.
Who once again, because of his love of gaming, found this side passion, and he really got into it.
Right.
And it's not just about like, here's the STL file, print. He goes into detail about how to make adjustments for every single print, you know, and he's got this YouTube channel that's just blowing up because he takes the time to show people like the little tricks, you know, and how to avoid mistakes. Like he's sharing like, here's a mistake that I made and it wasted a bunch of filament, but here's how you fix it for this one file. So he's created this community.
He's really taking his opportunity and his role to teach the community.
Yeah. And even with this,
awesome.
even with this Kickstarter, he's brought in different designers and artists too. So it's not just him. It's really a community Kickstarter, which is very, very cool. The second thing that I found is Ruin and Conquest: Adventures on the Island of Ealand by Brinton Williams. I'm going to go ahead and copy this link in so you guys can open this up while Brian and I are talking about it. Yeah, Hungary says you can never have enough dragons.
Absolutely not.
And Pandemonic says these models look awesome.
Yeah.
Super detail.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, so Brian, this is a little bit different. This is not terrain or minis, which is my usual addiction.
This is a book.
This is a system neutral setting and environment.
I like it already.
Yeah. So let's talk about
Sure.
why, you know, Adventures on the Island of Ealand, a system-neutral campaign setting for tabletop fantasy role-playing games. Now, this is new. This just launched. So they've got 24 days to go, but they're only at $659 of a $5,000 goal. So we have to think critically.
Sure.
What's wrong here? Is it that this system doesn't look interesting, or is it that their $5,000 goal is unrealistic? Should they have brought the goal down? The pledges, what looks right. So I watched this video, and you guys can watch while you're, in another window. But what looks really cool is that it kind of seems like a low magic, really hard to survive kind of environment. And it's, kind of like they're, this island had like a whole society and stuff, but now there's a lot of ruin. Okay. And, people have gone back to like a tribal lifestyle, and there are threats and dangers, associated with living on this island. Okay. And it just kind of seems like almost a medieval, really tough environment to survive in. The pledges, so this is one thing that I'm concerned about. There's, 2 pledge levels. For $25, you get a print and a PDF version. Right. Which seems reasonable for a book. And then for $35, you get the special edition print, and some artwork. Now that seems like reasonable for a book, right?
Yeah, I would say.
Here's what it contains. All you need to set adventures, campaigns, and encounters on the war-torn Isle of Ealand. History, customs, and cultures for 6 distinct humanoid races. 5 unique other folk races. A thorough guide to the major peoples and places. Maps. 15-plus tables to randomly generate everything. 20-plus original creatures. Detailed story seeds, plot lines, comprehensive primer on warfare of all types, sample encounter locations, information on the technology, weapons, architecture, and even the burial rites of the people, and 35-plus original drawings. I mean, I don't know how many pages this thing is going to be, but that's a lot of content, right? And the artwork looks dope. So what are they doing wrong, or what can they do to improve this?
They could add another pledge level.
Yes.
Like $25 and $35. The problem is like $600. That means you have 25 backers, 20 backers.
20 backers.
20 backers should be netting you more than $650.
Right.
And I think like that part of that might just be like they're not comfortable with like having really high budget, like high price points. But I don't. early this morning for a book.
I think that's a joke. Hi, I pledged earlier this morning for this book and have not yet received it. Could you please explain why?
It's too
It's either
far
a
off
joke
from
or somebody
what
who
the
doesn't
answer-
understand Kickstarter.
Sure. My thing at first glance is it's too far off from what a lot of DMs are doing via homebrewing for their own world, myself included. I've done my building with no money put into it, so I'm not sure what the $5,000 would be for. Granted, I'm not paying artists, but yeah.
I'm sure that a
printing
portion
costs-
of that is the artists, right? I mean,
A substantial portion is the artists. Printing costs are pretty substantial also. For the like physical book. I think like he could have dropped the price point and just done a PDF if he was going to do this like limited approach. But also like
this is the first pledge, or first created, by the way.
created,
So this guy became active, I don't know.
I think part of it is the term setting system neutral, even though I like it, is not necessarily what a lot of folks are looking for. Like people who know 5th edition don't need system neutral. They need 5th edition compatible. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think like...
Well, is that because, is he going system neutral, though, because he wants to be able to have it work with Pathfinder? Or
Right, my guess is there's no rules in the book. It's just like a campaign guide.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but like I think some of the wording is like he could write campaign guide, you know, or those kind of things. Also, he doesn't have... Nobody necessarily knows anything about his setting.
Yeah.
And therefore maybe doesn't care,
Maybe.
you know? So, I don't know.
Some of his links are broken.
Some of his links are broken, which is problematic.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I'm sure that the content is probably cool, but there's some just kind of administrative and like housekeeping concerns that make me nervous for this Kickstarter. I hope it does well.
Yes.
But we'll see.
Me too. And that was it for the Kickstarters, Brian. It was I saw a lot more, but a lot of them were things that I didn't want to
Covered
do
to death.
more terrain
More
and more
terrain
minis.
and
I
more
thought the
miniatures.
dragons thing that Danny was doing was
That's
cool.
yeah.
You know, how many dragons is too many dragons?
Ask my Monday night group tonight.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I'm running Horde of the Dragon Queen.
Right.
I'm running Rise of Tiamat now. That'd be fun.
So, in closing,
Sure.
we have
I suppose we have a bunch of announcements.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, where do you want to start? Should we go?
I'll just do a little bit of housekeeping.
Yeah.
Don't forget about Wednesday at MiniTerrainDomain. I don't know if he's still in chat, but he was earlier.
Yes.
We'll be at 9 Eastern, 8 o'clock Central Time. I'll be...
And that's live on his Twitch.
That's live on his Twitch and YouTube. He does
okay.
a simulcast.
Okay. Cool.
But we'll be live there. I'll be playing in an Affairs of Dragons campaign where we all play Wormlings.
Yes.
I'm going with Brass because I want a challenge.
Cool.
Also, we're not going to be here next week because of a holiday. Columbus Day? Is that next week? Columbus Day. We won't be doing this
Because we need sleep.
because I am going to die soon if I don't sleep more. Clearly.
MTD just said yes, live on both
Yes,
platforms.
live on both
So
platforms.
Twitch or YouTube. Thanks.
My wife's been coughing in my face for the last week, so now I'm coughing at the cat. I don't know. It's all downhill. So that we won't be here Monday, but I will be. We rescheduled Dragon Talk for Monday because it meant I wouldn't have to take a day off work.
Nice.
Will do, MiniTerrainDomain. So we'll be on Dragon Talk a week from today at, let's see, 3 o'clock Pacific, 5 p.m. Central, or 6 p.m. Eastern.
That is a prime time slot, boy.
Yep, I'm excited.
And who's hosting that?
It's with Greg Tito, who's the communications director for D&D.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a big deal. It's hopefully a lot of exposure. We'll be talking about the brand and kind of what we do. Latia will be on with me. We'll try to talk about the Bard's Tale and some of the other upcoming projects we have going on.
Nice.
I am occasionally on the Twitch doing
You just did some maps.
Yeah, I just worked with Incarnate yesterday for about an hour. Incarnate's a cool. We might have to look at do an episode on mapping and the different types of mapping.
Now that we figured out how to do the screen capture, we'll have to set that up. But
Incarnate's cool.
We could do a little walkthrough and play with that, because a lot of people have recommended it, and I haven't played with it. I've just done stuff with Photoshop, but that might seem like a nice tool set.
So I was doing that, and that is in support of, we're going to launch our second show here, either at the end of October or the beginning of November, as soon as I get it fully cast. And it'll be in the same setting as the Bard's Tale, but a vastly different region. But there might be some overlap in terms of like concepts and ideas between the shows. We're going to start with a Monster of the Week system and then kind of go off the rails from there.
Cool.
Yeah, so that'll start up soon, as well as season 3 for Bard's Tale. We're shooting soon.
Sometime
the first
soon.
3 episodes of that we're going to shoot. That should launch probably the first week of November.
And for those of you Twitch people, we'll try to stream that live on Twitch.
We'll try
but then
to stream
the full HD archived episodes will be uploaded later
YouTube,
to the channel.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, go back to our YouTube channel and check out 2 full seasons of the Bard's Tale.
Yes, and subscribe and click that little notifications bell so
comment.
that you can be aware when season 3 launches.
Yeah. So what's going on with Bill Allen World?
Well, season 3 of D&D with high school students is commencing. So last week we had like these short meet the cast videos that I made the students produce, which was good. And then this week, starting today, all this week, is character creation videos. So if you're curious about what the players are going to make.
Pandemonic, it's at Initiative Coffee Company for our YouTube.
Yes.
Full word company, sorry.
So yeah, that's progressing well, and I think we'll be shooting the first episodes very soon. But we have, what I kind of did was evolve the character making, so it's like meet the cast, and then character making sessions. And then what I'm going to do, still in session 0, is I'm going to do preludes. So one-on-one adventures with the players so that we can kind of play out like a short, little prelude kind of session.
How did you get your first level in?
Yeah, so because they're starting at level 3 and they're all newbies, so like they don't really still understand what their character can do.
We're glad you did too, Hungry.
Yeah.
I think that's an underrated, like the kind of one-on-one sessions is an underrated way to go. I know for when we do Long Rest, which is the new kind of Monster of the Week based system, we're going to have a session 0 and kind of go over like campaign expectations, and then Monster of the Week has a little bit more like narrative focus and more like group dynamics. So the map I made yesterday had 3 cities and a vast open space for putting more stuff on.
For adventures, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, I'm doing this in response to so much feedback from the other seasons where a lot of people really valued seeing the behind the scenes, like character development and stuff. And, some of the choices that the newbies make don't make sense to veteran players, but, they're having fun doing it. So that's great. And then we'll actually have the gameplay kicking off, so that'll be kind of cool. Last but not least, and this is still a ways off, people, but it's never too early to promote, is Lyon Con.
Never too early to promote.
Lyon Con is Brian and I's
it's our
original
convention.
Yeah.
It's here in the Chicago suburbs.
First weekend in February. It's a Saturday and Sunday gig.
If you're in Chicago for that weekend, come say hi.
Yeah.
It benefits programming at a high school. So,
it gets a bunch of really small communities at a very big high school together for a weekend of fun. It's open to the public. It's super cheap.
Yep.
$10 a head at the door gets you in.
I think we're going to try to do a full AL gaming weekend.
Yep, so we'll have Adventures League.
There's going to be a Warhammer tournament.
We're hopefully going to have a structured Warhammer tournament. And then open gaming galore. We're going to have board games. We're going to have a screening room for anime fans and, fantasy, sci-fi fans, that
I
kind
don't
of
want
stuff.
to make too many promises in case we don't get the facility spaced out right.
Well,
But,
then we'll show things in hallways. Whatever
we'll
we have
figure
to
it
do,
out.
we're going to make it happen.
last year we had 400 or 500 people come through.
Yes,
Yeah,
and we
it was a
had
good day.
and we have vendors and
Yeah.
and artists. We have panels, so it's going to be a lot of fun. And
If
we're
you're
gonna,
local and you want to be involved, please reach out to us.
yeah, go to the
we're
website
always looking for vendors and that kind of
lioncon.net,
stuff.
so you can see all the stuff from last year, and it's going to be exciting. So, well, Brad, that's it.
That's
it's
it.
time to
I'm
get
gonna
going.
Go
It's
take some NyQuil and go to bed.
Yes, and I'm going to go teach high school students about lighting. So if you tuned in live on Twitch, thank you for tuning in. Big thanks. Pandemonic, Hungries,
Thanks for finding us today.
MTD, yeah. And it's been fun chatting about tabletop stuff. We will not be back next week because of
Instead,
things.
you can go to our YouTube and check the last 4 episodes we've done if you're really looking for something to do at 9 a.m. Central.
Yes. So other than that, have a great gaming week, and we'll see you next time on Rise&Roll.
Roll together.
Hey neighbors, thanks for watching our video. Make sure you check out our other videos here and here. Make sure you subscribe down there and get the notifications from the bell up there. We'll see you next time.